Don't ever buy a house like this, even if it's a bargain. In 2004, a young family moved into the house they just bought for their family of 6. The house was huge with 12 bedrooms, but in the whole house, one room was locked. And a condition of sale from the real estate agent was they were to never open that door. Although concerned, it was a bargain they just couldn't pass up. But after the first few nights of moving in, the regret of the sale was realised. In the middle of the night, they woke up to something running through the wall. The sound was like banging, like someone was dragging something, but from inside the wall. The sound continued for hours as the father tried to figure out where it was coming from. The next day, the father found a secret door in the cellar. It led to another room, but it was locked. Night fell on them quickly though, so they all had to go back to their bedrooms. When all of a sudden there was a scream from one of his daughter's rooms. He ran into his daughter's room and found something dragging her in the closet. He quickly got an axe and went to the locked room and smashed open the door, only to find the real estate agent with a butcher's outfit, his daughter on a chopping table, and both her arms and legs missing. She was screaming, "Help me, Dad."
This is what they meant when they said, "Don't talk to strangers." In the early 1900s, a 10-year-old boy was playing in the woods when a tall man appeared and asked if he wanted to come back to his cabin for dinner. Totally caught off guard, the boy reluctantly agrees and begins walking. When they get to the cabin, the boy is relieved when he sees Paul, a family friend, sitting on the porch, so the boy happily goes inside. After they eat, the boy says thank you to the strange tall man, says bye to Paul, and then he leaves. He had only walked a few steps when he sees his family, along with Paul, running up the path towards him, frantically asking if he was okay. Confused, the boy says, "I'm just fine," and he looks at Paul and he's like, "Why didn't you tell them I was with you at the cabin?" And he points over his shoulder. Paul glances over the boy's shoulder and then narrows his eyes and says, "You were kidnapped by a cult 3 days ago. No one's seen you." Terrified, the boy turns around to look at the cabin he just came from, and it's gone. All he sees is a dark forest that stretches for miles.
I promise you, you won't eat school food after hearing this story. This happened in 2019 and it was very recent. An old lunch lady girl named Camila, this girl, absolutely hated her job and she hated the kids she served. They would always bully her and make fun of her fat. So one day when everything was falling apart, she decided to take revenge. And on the menu, it was eyeball soup. This lady took her husband's old dead body, chopped it up and threw it in some chicken noodle soup. She also put some cyanide poisoning so the people who drink it would die. And after she served this food, there was a confirmed 62 deaths in this school. Then she escaped and nobody knew where she went.
This story's called Just Don't Look at Her. A scared little girl one night asked her mum if she could change rooms because her bedroom is super scary lately. Her mum just turns around and says, "No dear, we set that room up for you." Later that night, the mum walks the little girl to her bedroom and says it's time for bed. As they walk down the hall, the little girl says, "Please mum, can I sleep in your bed tonight?" And the mum says, "No, we set up the room just for you." But last night, the girl who wakes her at night told her not to come back in that room. It's her room, and stay out. As the little girl lays there shaking, her mum creeps into the room to tuck her in. The little girl pretends that she's asleep, and her mum sits by her bed and whispers, "Don't be scared of the monsters in here. Look to the left, look to the right, look under your bed, look in your cupboard. But don't look up at her, she hates that." This story's called Help Me. A Macedonian family had been travelling through America. After being out late one night, their little girl curls up in the booth of a restaurant and falls asleep. She later wakes up in the back seat of the car. Still dazed and confused, she sees them pull into a doctor's clinic. While in the doctor's, the girl struggles to understand anything that's being said. The woman turns and says, "Where's the usual doctor?" And calmly, the doctor turns and says, "Well, I'm filling in today." Angry, the mother says, "Well, my daughter's sick and I think she's got food poisoning." When he talks to the girl in English, he doesn't get a response. The mother says she only speaks Macedonian, and the doctor turns and says "Dobro" in Macedonian. The girl's eyes light up. He leans down and says, "Are you okay? Have they hurt you yet?" The girl says, "No, but that's not my mum. I'm so scared." He looks at the mum who's confused and says, "I'll have to examine her." As she lays on the table, he says, "I'm a policeman, sweetie. These people have drugged you. They've also taken my daughter and I need you to go with them so I can find her." She hops down from the bed and in total fear she leaves with the woman.
This is the creepy story about the friend. There was a girl named Katie who did not have any friends. She always went to the park to meet new people, but sadly she never did. Until one day she was walking around the park, and a girl her age came up to her and started talking to her. Katie was ecstatic. The two girls began talking and playing games together. Katie was so happy she finally had a friend and asked the girl to come over her house. The girl gladly accepted. When they got to Katie's house, Katie yelled to her mom to come meet her new friend. When her mom came over, she asked Katie where's her friend. Katie said right here and turned around, but there was nobody there. Katie swore she was with the girl all day. Katie's mom just giggled and thought it was cute. That night, Katie was watching TV when a breaking news alert came up on the screen. It was a picture of Katie's friend that she made that day with the caption saying, "Girl's dead body found in park."
This is the haunting story of Jeff the Killer. Jeff was a young boy who moved into a new home with his family. One day, 3 teenage boys decided to attack Jeff and his brother, but Jeff managed to fight them off, leaving them in the streets with broken wrists and knife wounds. Unfortunately, after the incident, Jeff realized that he genuinely enjoyed inflicting pain and suffering on others. Later that night, Jeff's mother began to hear a strange noise coming from the bathroom of their house. It sounded like someone was crying. When she entered the room, she found Jeff carving a permanent smile into his cheeks, and she also realized that he had cut off his eyelids so he wouldn't have to sleep. Jeff's final words to his mother were, "Mom, you lied," after which he murdered his entire family and disappeared into the night. He was never seen again, but legend has it, he's looking for his next victim.
This is why you should always lock your door while you're driving.
A man just got off work and was driving home. It was about 2 a.m. and he came across a red light. It was one of those red lights that sit for way too long. The man contemplated on running the red light, but he wanted to be a good Samaritan, so he said, "I'll just wait it out." And this is where the story takes a very dark turn. So a woman sitting at a bus stop sees the man's car stopped at the red light, so she walks over to his window. The man then gets very worried as the woman approaches his window, and she looks at him and she knocks on the glass. The woman then signals him to roll down the window just like that. The man then rolls down his window just enough to have a small conversation. The woman looks at him and says, "I've been beat by my husband, can you help me?" The man looks at the woman and notices that there's no bumps or bruises, so he's kind of eerie about this. The woman says again, "I've been beat by my husband, can you help me?" The man just starts staring at this woman in shock. The woman then says the same exact thing over and over again. So as this woman keeps asking over and over again, the light suddenly turns green. The man looks at the woman and says, "I can't help you." The woman smiled and said, "You just saved your life."
This is why you should never, ever ding-dong ditch somebody's house, part 2. So after the door swung open, he grabbed his arm. The kid with a lot of anxiety was so scared and so shocked about what was happening that he literally started hyperventilating. The other 2 kids just left him there. The kid who was super anxious about everything managed to break free and ran straight to the house. As he was running, the neighbor stalked him and watched which house he went into. All 3 of the kids go to the parents and were like, "Hey, the neighbor just grabbed my arm because we were ding-dong ditching." The parents didn't really seem to care because, the kids were wrong to begin with. So at around 1 a.m., all the kids decided, "Hey, let's all go to bed. That was super scary. We'll just call it a night." All 3 of the kids go to sleep in different bedrooms. As all of the kids were sleeping, they heard this bang and it woke all of them up, including the parents. So all the kids jump up and run downstairs to go meet, but the only one who didn't run was the kid who had a lot of anxiety. So the dad goes to check on the kid, and to his surprise, he sees the kid has been stabbed, and he looks out of the window and the neighbor is walking back home.
This is why you should never watch my videos before going to bed. In 1986, a young girl opens her closet to find a man wearing a dress and holding an axe. He grabs her and ties her up, and then walks around the house and does the same thing to the rest of her family. While the guy is ransacking their house, one of the kids breaks free, runs next door, and tells his neighbor. The neighbor calls the cops show up, the family's saved, but the guy is nowhere to be found. The family leaves the house and stays with relatives in hopes that they'll catch this guy before they have to go back. But after a few weeks, they haven't caught him, there aren't any leads, and they say, "You know what, we'll go back to our house anyways." As the family's pulling back into their driveway, the father looks up at one of the windows and sees, for a split second, the head of the man with the dress in their bedroom. They call the police, who go in and find pennies glued to the ceiling and weird writing all over the house, but they can't find this crazy guy. Until one of the officers found a secret crawl space in the basement, where psychotic killer Danny LaPlante had been living for 2 months. This is why you should always trust your gut. In the early 1970s, a college student decided to hitchhike his way home after class. A car pulls up, a man offers him a ride, and he climbs in. As soon as the car started moving, the student felt totally uneasy, like something was wrong but he couldn't quite place it. Without saying anything, he waited till the next time they slowed down and he flung the door open and ran away. 2 years later, he's flicking through TV channels when he comes across this special interview with a death row inmate, and it's just the audio recording, so he hears the interviewer ask the inmate, "Why did you remove all the door handles inside of your car?" The man just goes, "Well, the first time I tried to kill someone, I picked up a college hitchhiker who got smart at some point and jumped out of my car. So, lesson learned, remove all the door handles." When they showed his picture, the student knew immediately that he was supposed to be the first victim of John Wayne Gacy, aka the killer clown, who had killed over 30 men and boys in his clown room and stuffed them into his basement.